Moving countries is always a big adjustment, but for Americans living in the UK, managing finances can be especially complex. From navigating two tax systems to dealing with currency shifts and reporting requirements, there's a lot to think about. Today, we'll explore the biggest challenges, common mistakes, and practical ways to protect your growth across borders. I'm joined by Josh Moss, who works for W1M with US expats here in the UK. Let's start with the basics. What do Americans living in the UK need to think about first when it comes to their finances?
Good question. So, an American who is living in the UK will need to consider two tax jurisdictions. The US, which taxes on a citizenship basis and taxes on a calendar year. The UK, which taxes on a residency basis and taxes in a fiscal year. Both jurisdictions have different deadlines and dates for filing and reporting. And although there is a tax treaty between the US and the UK to try and avoid people paying double tax, it doesn't always align neatly in the real world. So needs to be understood to essentially avoid costly mistakes.
Okay. And what are the biggest financial challenges US expats face when they're here?
Currency.
Okay.
So the US speaks in dollars, the UK speaks in sterling, and the currency fluctuates, as we've seen quite significantly this year. And that matters because when you're reporting, you need to be able to speak in the correct currency to the tax jurisdiction you're reporting to. But also when you are selling assets, you need to consider the implications in each currency.
So, what are the key mistakes you see when people first move over from America?
Yeah, there are some mistakes or pitfalls, I should say, for Americans that are in the UK. Um, it really starts, I guess, with investments. There are some very popular and common investments that you can make in both the US and the UK that have punitive tax considerations in each. One of those being a very typical US mutual fund, for instance, which or an ETF in the US, which could be considered non-reporting in the UK and have punitive tax consequences. And similarly, there are UK mutual funds or collective investments, which can be considered a passive foreign investment company, and that will have significantly negative tax
Okay.
consequences, but also a reporting burden as well.
Okay.
The other sort
And
of common mistakes that people make are, not understanding that the US calculates capital gains a little bit differently to the UK, so they don't match exactly the same. There are different rules on estate planning and thresholds and definitions of domicile, and just products, things like some tax efficient products in the UK, such as an ISA. Will be seen as a brokerage account in the US, and you just need to be conscious of that when you're making some investment decisions.
okay. Um, and how can you help, or how do people help protect and grow their wealth across borders?
Yeah, it's a good question. Keep things simple. I think that's got to be at the foundation of any decision. What we can't guarantee what will happen in the future, but you can almost be certain that there'll be a change in regulation or a change in circumstance. So you need to make sure that any strategy that you deploy is adaptable to that change and flexible in nature. The best thing you can do to protect and grow your wealth across border is work with professional advisors who understand the complexities.
Okay. Um, and with that in mind, why is it so important to have everything managed in one joined up plan?
Yeah, so when you are operating in two different tax jurisdictions, that adds a layer of complexity. So what you want to do is simplify the complexity, and to do that, if you can have a consolidated or an integrated reporting ability or aid, then that will help when it comes to managing wealth and assets. Also, having a coherent strategy that works across the two different jurisdictions can mean that you're able to look at your risk, or are you looking at the right tax allowances, or are you ensuring your assets are working as hard as possible for you? This being having it all in one place allows you to create a proactive framework essentially for future cash flow and estate planning and all the other financial planning parts that you need to consider.
Okay. And finally, if you had to boil it down, what are the 5 key things that Americans should think about when they're in the UK?
5. Okay. I think number 1, stay on top of your tax and filing deadlines. That's really important, and there are many. Number 2, always consider the tax and currency implications of any financial decision you make in the US and the UK. Ensure your wealth strategy is adaptable, like we mentioned before, but to changing circumstances or regulations.
Yeah.
Don't assume that what works in the US works in the UK and vice versa. And then make sure that you're utilizing any allowances that are available to you in each of the jurisdictions.
Okay. So thank you for that, Josh. So it's clear managing finances across borders is never simple, but with the right planning, Americans in the UK can steer clear of the common pitfalls and make the most of the opportunities available to them. Josh, thank you for joining.
Thank you.